Hello, everybody at Choir Community, and welcome to another of our very interesting series of arranger interviews. And our latest arranger we've welcomed onto the site is Kate Shipway. Hello, Kate.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes.
As well as can be expected in the circumstances.
Indeed.
Wonderful to have you here. And I'm going to ask you a few things about your musical life, what makes you tick, maybe in an arranger conductor sort of sense. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
But I start with the same question I start with everybody. I want you to cast your mind way, way back to when you were very little. And I'd like to know, what was your first experience of music as a thing? Do you remember when you sort of became aware of music?
I have a feeling this is going to sound really cliched, but and obviously I don't remember this, but I know that I experienced music as early as back in the womb. And my mum and dad talked about going to various concerts and how apparently me just going ballistic inside. My mum could feel me kind of moving around, and um, so obviously I don't remember that, but I have very early memories of music always being around. My dad was like played in a lot in various bands when I was a kid,
Oh,
and
what did he play? What instrument did he play?
guitar and bass guitar,
Okay.
and I mean, and sometimes drums. He'd try his hand at anything, but mostly guitars and bass guitars.
And did he always have like instruments set up around the house so you could sort of bump into them or pick them up?
Yeah, to
And
some extent. I mean, I was never into guitar, certainly not at that age. But I do remember kind of there always being massive amps around the house and things like that. Um, and and then I was in a church choir at a very young age, and for me, one of my most memorable experiences of actually performing was my first experience of performing Zadok the Priest,
wow.
and that piece for has ever since then just been um, this massive mood lifter. I love it. I can just feel the excitement building, and as a I
You
can't
got it
imagine.
first time. The first time you sang it, you felt the that tension
Yeah,
building
and
up
I
before the
can't
choir
imagine
comes in.
I think I was. I mean, I joined that choir when I was very young, so like 5 or something. So I might have been 6 or 7. I might
That
even have
is
been as
young.
early as 5. I don't know. I can't imagine I made much of an impression on actually being able to do anything, but I do remember, and I remember sort of older people there sort of saying, "Wow, this is very or very big for you to be doing at such a young age." And I even remember what shoes I was wearing because it seemed like such an important and amazing moment to be in this.
That's wonderful. What a way to start. Did you stay with that choir for quite a while?
We yes, I was in it for and so that was in Bristol, near Bristol, and we moved up to the northwest when I was about 10 or 11. So I was in it until then, and
All that
I've
time.
been in a choir, at least one choir ever since.
Were there any other pieces or songs that made a similar impact in those early years? Do you
We did
remember?
a lot of weddings. It was a church choir, and so I remember singing "Jesus Joy of Man's Desiring" a lot, but really loving it, and I still love it now. And there's some pieces of music that I've had to do a lot and don't really love, but that's one
Oh.
that hasn't happened.
It features in our classical section in Choir Community.
Oh
We've
yes, I
arranged
remember
for
that.
that with the
I've
backing
seen that.
track all ready to go. So
Ah,
if anyone's watching, they
nice
want
plug in there.
to kick one in. Going back to primary school a little bit, well, at the same time, I suppose, was there a teacher that inspired you musically or influenced you particularly or encouraged you in a certain direction or you
I had two. So there was a lady outside of primary school that um, a lady called Leslie Lees, who was a piano teacher, but she also did mother and toddler sessions, and that's when I first sort of was involved in doing music myself. My mum took me along to those, and although I've never been an amazing piano player, she got me to starting piano very young. Um, So I feel like I've always been a musician, a musical, but just not particularly not a pianist. um, but I loved her and her approach to things, and she was so encouraging, and I really missed her when we moved away. And then there was also another teacher. She was actually the vicar's wife, but she ended up being a supply teacher at our primary school on a long term thing,
Mm.
and and it wasn't just in music; it was in everything. She just encouraged you to try things, whether you were good at it or not, and she just had this wonderful way of not being not expecting everybody to do the same and be the same, but for everybody to at least try and do whatever it was that they wanted
Yeah.
with an idea or something.
And I suppose you've carried that approach through to your own community choirs as well. I noticed
Yeah,
on the website you say if you think you can't sing, you're wrong. You can sing. Everyone can sing.
yeah, and I really believe that. I wasn't sure. I didn't know much about sort of things like being tone deaf until I heard an article on probably a Radio 4 program years ago, saying basically there is such a thing as tone deaf, but it's like such a tiny proportion of people that it can affect, that actually most people just haven't had the opportunity to try things out and and experiment and get it wrong until they can get it right and feel what it feels like.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, I do believe that pretty much everyone can sing.
So that makes me think of another question. Have you had somebody, leaping ahead a bit here, have you had somebody join your choir who is convinced that they are tone deaf, and you've managed to, bring them out of that, and
Um,
or they say, I can't, I haven't sung.
Lots of people say, yeah, I haven't sung, or I haven't sung since primary school. I haven't. I was told to be quiet at primary
Yes.
school, and actually, my mum was one of those people. She was told as a primary school child, so just mime, don't do anything, and she had an absolutely beautiful voice, just totally untrained,
Mm.
but she never had the confidence to do anything, and she died quite young. But she, in the last couple of years before she died, she started to kind of actually sing, and she never instilled that fear into my brother or I. She sang with us in the car, and all the time
Yeah.
she was determined that we were never going to feel like that.
Good.
But she would never she hated singing in front of anyone else apart from just family, and she had a beautiful voice. So
Oh, that's lovely. So when did you've answered some of my other questions already. When did you get your first urge to arrange or compose? When did that come about? Do you remember?
Well, I did GCSE and A level music, so and we would have done stuff at secondary school before then. But I do remember really loving sort of some of the exercises we had to do in GCSE music, and then I didn't want to follow the rules always. So I remember getting really frustrated with being told, no, that's not right because X, Y, and Z, and I did have a really good teacher, but he, at that whatever exercise that was, I think I just wanted to go off in my own direction, and the point of that one was that I stayed and did these rules. But I loved, particularly in the A level composition portfolio, I loved working on that, um, and did some quite varied stuff. Um,
Anything particularly you'd like to tell us about? That's something that. And did
um,
they get performances? These pieces you were writing? Did you?
no, some of them were too complicated. So I did a concert band piece, and that was going to get performed, but something went wrong between. I can't remember. It just didn't happen. And I did a flute ensemble piece, which was based on like fairground themes. So it was meant to sound like being at the fairground. And I did a choral piece, which was very sad. It was based on a poem. Well, it was a setting of a poem um, about someone dying. so, um, and I have actually rearranged that recently. It's not in my first set of
Okay. Do you think it might
recordings.
appear at some point?
Yes, probably in the second lot. I figured because it's so sad. I figured I'd wait, and and yeah, do something more cheerful first.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I notice you're you're a vocal coach as well. So do you do individual singing teaching as well as with a group?
Generally not. I
Okay.
do individual lessons on ukulele at the moment,
Hmm.
but I've only ever done the odd bit of individual teaching, and if I'm honest, I don't enjoy it as much as uh, the ensemble stuff.
Mm.
So I do go and coach other groups in how to get the best sound, and amongst that I might do some individual stuff, but mostly ensemble work is where
I was
I
going to ask you about your approach to the teaching. If you've received vocal teaching like I have and had to give some, there's a balance, isn't there, between the technical and the feel. Are you more of a technical kind of singing coach, or do you like to go through the feel route in the sort of?
the feel, but with sort of safety elements in there, sort of with the background of where the technical should be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, keeping
um,
the vocal health a little bit sort of forefront.
yeah,
So if you had a new choir and they were singing a little bit flat on a piece, what would you say to them straight away? Saying they don't know you very well, how would you approach that situation?
um, sometimes I would just maybe I'd start by just singing it again, demonstrating what I want. I would so I wouldn't necessarily say to tell them to physically do the things that I might do, but I might just demonstrate using some kind of gesture and showing how I might deliver that on my face, and certainly sort of sitting up or standing up, and um, and just trying it a few times before actually saying, why don't you physically try doing this or this, or because I think sometimes it's easier to get or it's better to get a result subconsciously without
Yeah,
telling them what to
without telling
say.
them you are singing flat, that no one wants to
Oh
hear.
yeah. I'd try not to say that.
Yeah, there are. I suppose I'm sure there are plenty of ways of avoiding having to say it. So, how did you come about leading choirs?
Well, I went on several sing for pleasure conducting courses as a teenager and fell in love with it. And but it was one of those things where I'd go on a summer school, make progress over that week, and then not have a choir to work on um, for a year. So
Oh.
then I would go back the next year, and the progress I'd made from getting to there would have gone back to sort of there, and I'd go a bit further. And it was only when I actually had a choir of my own to work with that I actually really started being able to progress properly.
And did you found that choir yourself, or
Um,
did you interview for a job? How did you come to
well,
be that
someone
person?
it was the Wigan Community Choir, and I was their first conductor, but someone wanted to set up a choir, and she contacted a lady called Imelda, who couldn't do it, and she said, "Why don't you ask Kate? She's sort of hasn't got a choir yet, but she would be great." And Imelda had been a coach of mine on one of these conducting courses, um, so that's how I got into it. And now Imelda is their conductor. I left after 4 years, and someone else um, went in for a year, and then she left because she was moving away. And Imelda had in the meantime moved away to Canterbury and then moved back to Wigan. And when she came back, there was a job for her at this choir, which is it felt really nice.
I felt very natural, but personal recommendation is a lovely way, isn't it, to
Yeah,
get a job like that? So you were with them for 4 years, and did you start arranging for them straight away, or where did you source your music from to start with?
I can't remember.
Obviously,
Lots of sing for pleasure stuff, I guess, and
mhm.
probably I would have had the VoiceWorks books, the
Yeah,
OUP VoiceWorks, at least the first one.
very useful.
And yes, I think I did some arrangements, but I don't know what they were, and I don't think I've even got them anymore. But yes, I and we did buy some stuff, some sheet music, um, and I don't think the choir community website existed then. It was like that would have been back in 2004
Yeah,
when I
so
first
we're very
2005
young.
when I
We're,
started.
we're extremely young. We've done 3 years, so yes, it's relatively recent. But it might have been useful to have it around a bit.
It was, yes.
Well, because the idea did start a long time ago in some of our heads, you know, as a potential thing. All these people with arrangements lying around in drawers and under things, and hoping that we get them out there somehow. No idea how to do it. So I noticed that you've done quite a bit of traveling, and you mentioned that you love traveling. How is your travel linked with your musical life?
Um, I'm in a choir called Sine Nomine International Touring Choir.
Oh,
It's a very grand title, and we mostly just go to places in Europe. Um, but I know before I joined, they had been to Canada and places like that as well. Um, but we've seen some absolutely stunningly beautiful places and performed in some wonderful venues, including on a threshing circle in the mountains of the Alpujarran region in Spain. A threshing circle is this big stone, kind of flat stone area on the side of a mountain, and I remember and it's a sort of 10-minute walk on this little path away from a village, and I can some of the bases as we're trundling along to get to this thing. I'm sorry, bases, but you know it's you. They were kind of very vocal about having to sing outside and why do we have and they got there and they kind of there was just this hush and there was this beautiful acoustic natural there was an acoustic that didn't feel like we were outside. There was some kind of natural.
so was it? Was it cut into the mountain? Was it kind of like a little amphitheater type sort of
It
situation?
kind of like an amphitheater, but it wasn't anything as grand as sort of cut into the mountain. I think there was just like a bank of kind of stones and dry earth, that the audience sat on, and the choir were on the sort of flat of the circle,
Yeah,
and then behind there was this sort of beautiful
sounds
mountain range.
sounds amazing.
Yes, really stunning.
Oh,
Um,
I'll have to
and
look that
and
up.
singing as the sun was coming down, it was just magical.
Wow. Anywhere else you'd like to? Sounds amazing. Anywhere else you'd like to recommend us to go? If Spain sounds wonderful, is there anyone else you'd like to tell us about? Somewhere we can go and sing, and
we
another
yeah
place
we
you've had a wonderful concert experience in?
Singing in the Thomaskirche in Leipzig was another memorable and special occasion. I think Bach had been there many years earlier, and we climbed up the tower and had a view over Leipzig as well, and it was a really beautiful city.
Did you actually sing some Bach in his own church?
Oh, I wish I could tell you that we did. I can't remember.
Oh,
We probably sang some Mendelssohn.
yes, I think he was there too for a while, wasn't he?
Hurrah.
Thank you. How did you get to hear about Choir Community?
Um, my friend Chris Nelson is a member, and she also runs lots of choirs, and she told me about it. And back in when did you do is it Pocariana?
Oh, it was just about
Few
a year
years.
ago, actually, but just over a year ago, we did Percari, and then
And
we had the special help from the Maori specialist in New Zealand to help us to um, uh, enunciate it better,
okay.
pronounce
Um,
it better. So we did a new version.
so she told me about that and said it was beautiful, and I looked that up and must have become a member, sort of getting the newsletter from there, and
Hmm.
that's when I saw your email just before Christmas about you know do you want to become a composer, or an
Did you
arranger, or
immediately think when you joined? Did you immediately think, "Oh, I'd like to write for them," or did it not occur to you until you saw the invitation?
um possibly in the back of my head it would have been maybe like, oh, how do people get to do that, and maybe I never really got any further on from that, and I probably wouldn't even have had. I know we're not meant to be talking about lockdown, but I wouldn't have um, I possibly wouldn't even have had enough repertoire if it hadn't have been for the lockdowns to send off a batch to you to try, to see whether I'd be suitable.
Well, I'm a big collector of positive things that have come out of lockdown, and that's definitely one of them. So that's good. It's got to be a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So out of your array, some lovely songs you've sent to us, which is your favourite, your most go-to piece that you think I'm very happy with that? You like to
There's
point people
two.
towards.
There's two. Well, there's a few. I love the Keelrow version,
Mm.
just because it's so joyful and it is an earworm. Total. I mean, as soon as I say it now, it's sort of spinning around in my head. But I don't mind. It's okay. I love the lullaby, the Manx lullaby arrangement, because it's just gentle and a beautiful tune. And I like putting the tune in different voice parts, not just giving it to the. It tends to be sopranos have the tune and everybody else has accompaniment. So I do try and move the tune around in different arrangements and things.
Yeah, I think you've anticipated my next question again. You're very good at that.
Sorry.
That's fine. I was going to ask you if you have a special approach to arranging. So one of them would be to make sure the voice parts get an equal billing
Yeah,
in
and it's not always equal. I know that, but I do um, try and make sure that one part doesn't just get lose all the way through or do's or and sometimes it does happen that's just how the arrangement pans out. Um, but I try not to make that an overall theme.
And how would you, was any other sort of approaches to arranging that you have, or things you like to ways you like to approach?
Not to think about it too much. So I might, if I start work on a piece, um, and if I get stuck on it or I don't like something about it, I leave it and go away. And I might even do something as mindless as playing my stepdaughter's video game or something. But it's kind of percolating. Or I might I have a Spanish app that I do some Spanish on, but I'll be kind of concentrating on something else, but there will be this idea germinating, and I find if I just sit and try and force myself to keep going, it just sounds unnatural. It doesn't feel right. So
Yeah,
I do walk away from it and go and do something else, even if it's the washing up, which
it's amazing how that
happens a lot.
works, isn't it? Yeah. Is anything you're writing or arranging now that you can tantalize us with,
Um,
or something you'd like to arrange that you haven't started yet?
there's a few things.
Well,
I have got a whole list of stuff that I want to arrange that I've never have because I've never had because they're not out of copyright. So now I've got this sort of way into being able to get those legalized. I have got a whole list and featuring some James Taylor pieces. I just love James Taylor. He's just,
nice.
and maybe some Carole King. Um, there was a piece that came up on Facebook today by one of your other arrangers. The is it Abby?
Yeah.
And she's done an a cappella version of the song that I really want to do. So I'm hoping you'll allow a second version, but mine won't be a cappella. So
You have multiple versions of things. It's nice, I think, people to have the choice of arrangements.
yeah, I
Uh,
loved her arrangement, but I would, because I've wanted to do that with my community choirs for a while. But
which song is that?
the Saltwater, the Julian Lennon.
Okay.
Um, so yes, that's a plan. And then for this might not be for choir community because it's going to be half in Spanish and half in English.
Oh, that's okay.
But there's a poem that a friend sent to me a few years ago, and that's going to be. I've kind of got the idea of half, yeah, some voices singing in Spanish and some in English, the English translation.
That sounds lovely. I think we should keep expanding our use of foreign languages. So no, don't be encouraged. Yes. Why not? Give it a go. Somebody will go for it. I'm sure they will.
Okay.
Well, it's been very lovely to meet you today, Kate. Thank you for telling us about your arranging
Thank
and
you
your
for
musical
talking
life.
to me.
And we hope you have many happy years with us. And we look forward to seeing all the things you're going to come up with.
Thank you. I'm
And
very excited to be part of choir community.
and all the best with the future of your choirs, both during and after lockdown.
Yes. it will be a very happy day when we can start to sing together in a real room, won't it?
Can't quite imagine it now, but yes, I think happiness will be one of the things.
Yes.
Very much a feature.
Hmm.
Okay, lovely. Well, hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Cheers then. Bye bye.
Bye.